Hello, everyone on Patreon. Thank you so much for your ongoing support and for voting this month on a bonus movie review. The winner this month is The Sweet Hereafter, which was released in 1997. This was directed by Atom Egoyan. The screenplay was also by Atom Egoyan. It was based on the book by Russell Banks. It starred Ian Holm, Sarah Polley, Tom McCamus, Gabrielle Rose, Alberta Watson, Maury Chaikin. It's got a phenomenal ensemble cast. Arsini Kanjian. I hope I have her name right. That's Adam Egoyan's wife, who's in a number of his films. David Hemblin, Bruce Greenwood. It's fantastic. The plot, for those of you who haven't seen it, a bus crash in a small town brings a lawyer to defend the families, but he discovers everything isn't what it seems. I saw this when I was very young, in my early cinematic going days, and I didn't take to it. Actually, I've never taken to Egoyan, even his more commercial efforts. I remember seeing Remember. I liked, which was from 2015. But I never cared for Egoyan, and I've come around to like his movies more. And I I I partly put this on the poll because it's in the top 10 for as in the 50 greatest films directed by Canadians that CBC Arts presents, which was a critic sent in their list of top tens, and then they compiled that and I added it up, or however they figured these 100 lists out, and it came in at number two, and I thought I should watch it again. I mean, it's a lot of people are saying this is one of the greatest Canadian films. Came in at number two, so I watched it again recently on the Criterion channel, and then I went because at Paradise Movie Theater here in Toronto, they were showing all the movies that came in the top 10. So I went the other night. Actually, I wanted these postcards are fantastic. If anyone wants one, let me know because I have tons. I did not think these were free, but they were, and so generous to give these out because these are incredible. Illustrated by Marie Bergeron. I hope I have her name right, but if anyone wants one, let me know and I'll mail it to you because they're fantastic artwork. And as you can see, it's a postcard. But so I just in a short span of a few days watched it. I knew it won the poll, so I watched it on the Criterion channel, and then I watched it at the movie theater. And I kept seeing, like any great work of art, I kept seeing different things each time, and some things that I wasn't too sure about, I liked more. I actually did. I grew to like, or I saw the value of it, and so the film, I mean, it's really about trauma. How do you go on after trauma? Like, for example, everyone in this movie has lost a child. All of the adults, that is, and so how do you go on? When does grief turn to anger, and then what is that anger like? What do you do with that anger? And so who Ian Holm plays, his daughter's not physically dead, but she's dead in a way because her drug addiction is so far gone. The father can't even help her anymore, and so he feels as though she's dead. And in the film, she's calling him, and she's very angry, and he doesn't really know what to say to her. And so his anger is such that he cannot accept what's happened in his life, and he feels as though people have to pay for this. Like, what, in other words, and that's what anger does. When we can't accept things, we say, why me? Why did this happen? I will not accept it. And I think he truly believed, he truly could not accept that. And so he's this big, from I think he's from Toronto, because we see when his daughter calls, she's calling from Toronto because I saw the GO train go by. And then he goes to this small town in BC, but I'm pretty sure he's from Toronto, and so he's like this big city lawyer, and he goes into this small town in BC where this bus crash happened, and it's many of these, most of the children died on the bus except Sarah Polley played, and so it has this. Well, actually, on the Criterion Channel, there's this great featurette about the editing style and the book. Apparently, I'm not exactly sure, but I don't know if it was every chapter or just different parts of the book was told from a different perspective of each character. And so he does that to an extent in the film. So everything is not, it's not told linear. It jumps back and forth in time. And I did wonder at first, I wonder why he was doing that. And I think for one thing, he's showing the collective trauma and how all these people are connected. And they don't really, in my view, they don't really see the connection. I think they all know that they lost their child, but I remember when I first saw it, a part of me thought, "Oh yeah, it's this big city guy, and he comes to destroy the town and use people's anger to get things," which I'll get into in a second. But really, the community is not particularly tight knit, from what I saw, anyways. You know, the first parents he goes to, the lawyer, the father is trash talking people in the community. It doesn't seem very close. It seems more like of a distant community. But some people do sort of, care for others and look out for others. And that's Sarah, in my view, is more like Sarah Polley's character, Bruce McDonald's character. And, well, Bruce McDonald's character to an extent, because, I'll get into it. I mean, it's such a complicated film. It's such a complicated story, yet it does have a certain simplicity in terms of, it's obvious that this is about grief. It's obvious that the lawyer who Ian Holm is playing is taking his anger and spreading it amongst everyone else. So he wants to make a case that someone did something to the bus, that they were negligent when this bus was checked and made, and so it's the fault of the company, and so he wants to go after the company, and so he makes everyone believe that. And of course, the only one who doesn't believe it is Bruce McDonald, who said he had actually checked the bus. So I'm not sure, unless I missed it, exactly what his occupation was, but he said he had actually personally checked the bus. And so he really sees how this guy is coming in and just trying to gain something from everyone's grief and use their anger to his own advantage, but he's also channeling his anger and he's trying to, quote unquote, get something from the fact that his daughter is gone as well. And, so again, this editing structure is so interesting because it's cutting back and forth in time, and Ian Holm, throughout the film, they cut to him on an airplane, and he runs into his daughter's friend, and so he's telling her what's been happening with the daughter, and so he tells her stories about when she was young and things like that. So we are getting to know him more through these flashbacks and phone calls. Not flashback, actually, because it's flash forward, because that's 2 years later, and the phone calls with his daughter. And so we are seeing how he is so connected to these people through going forward in time, going back in time. They even go all the way back to when his daughter was like first born. And that's like the first image we see is this. And Atom Egoyan said something interesting, which is that, he likes when movies start with just a striking image and we don't exactly know where this is going, and so we really have to pay attention because we don't know who these people are. It's like a baby and their parents sleeping, and it is a strong image, an overhead image, and then we find out later that that's him and his daughter and his child when his daughter was a baby. But what's so interesting about him is that he's almost like he's almost like a villain in a sense, because he's really insensitive to a lot of these people who are going through so much, and he's controlling of them. He's almost, angry at them if they question anything that he wants. And so, the irony is that he is so grief stricken as well, but he can't feel that or allow himself to truly feel it because he's so angry, which is again, it's really really fascinating. And so he's making people see, like, he's trying to convince them that they can gain more from, and not just take an insurance settlement and things like that. And again, this really pisses off Bruce Greenwood's daughter. Sorry, this really pisses off Bruce Greenwood, who again can see through this guy. Like, he's wiser, and he tries to convince people in the community to just drop it. And he's like, I'll help you if you want money. I'll help you. You could take, because his kids died and his wife died before, so he's like, I'll give you the money from my kids that I got. He's like, that's what a community does. So he has more of a community attitude. And again, you see that in Sarah Polley, who's like babysat his kids, there's a boy who comes on the bus who's really troubled, and she like sits beside him, puts her arm around him. She's very nurturing and kind, which she in really is the moral center of the film. And she gives an incredible performance. I mean, the thing that I love so much about, it's a shame that she doesn't act anymore. She's an incredible writer and director, but I wish she still acted, because she has an incredible maturity. Like, she was like 17 or 16 when she did this. She has an incredible maturity about her and strength in her eyes, and she's just incredibly deep. I mean, she could do so little with just the subtlest of expressions. And what we find out about her is that she's being sexually abused by her father. And so what we see is that she's like a musician, and he's watching her play. And my impression was that she wanted his validation so much. And because she's so young, he's confusing her. Like, they're divorced. He's manipulative in the sense that he's turning their relationship into a love affair. And so we see how she's conflicted about this, because there's a scene later where they go and they're kissing, and before they go in, she stops and just looks at her father, and he looks back at her. And my impression, again, I mean, you really have to take what you have to make your own judgment calls, but my feeling was she's just confused, she's conflicted, because she's, not like he's like the father and also like a lover. So he's abusing her. He's sexually abusing her, and of course later he wants her to go and tell the lawyer what happened. They have to bring everybody in and she's like, I think she was the only survivor. She becomes disabled. The bus like went under ice, and sunk, and so she's wound up disabled. The woman who rode the bus like she's injured her neck very badly, and so he wants her to go and say what happened, and tell the lawyer put it on record. And so now again, this is really interesting, because she overheard the conversation with Bruce Greenwood and saying, drop the case, all these lawyers are getting involved, and this is just making things worse. This is just nonsense and terrible, and just drop it. Drop this lawsuit and all this kind of stuff. And now he's also being subpoenaed to testify, even though he doesn't want anything to do with it, because he was behind the bus. So he, because he can say, yeah, she was driving normally, she didn't do anything, she wasn't driving too fast, and all this kind of stuff. So to make a case that it was definitely something that was done, it was wrong with the bus and not anything to do with her driving. So Sarah Polley's character intentionally lies, and says that she was driving too fast. And she's looking at her father when she's saying this, and so you think, why did she lie? And Ian, now the case, like, they can't pursue anything with the case, because she said that, she's driving too fast, so the case is dead. And so Holm was mad and said to her father, you should ask yourself, why would your daughter do that to you? And that's, for us, like, is it because of the sexual, because she's seeing the sexual abuse, so this is a way to get back at him, or is it because it's such a complicated relationship because she says to him the night before, "Oh, I thought you were gonna like light all the candles in the concert hall, and I was and I forget exactly what she says, but again, she's almost talking to him like a lover, like I thought you admired me, I thought you loved me, like I'm your little rock star or something along those lines, and and he just doesn't really answer her. So it's sort of like he portrays her as a father, he portrayed her as he confused her and made her feel that she was a lover. And I think this was not only a way to get back at him, but I think she also saw what the lawyer was up to, because as soon as she finds out about this lawyer coming in, she's very, very suspicious about it. And now this led into the story, the Pied Piper story, which is this story. So now this is not in the book. Atom Egoyan saw a parallel between the Sweet Hereafter and the Pied Piper, which is this guy who saved this town from all these infestation of rats, and he felt that the town betrayed him because they didn't pay him. And so I think in a way it was sort of like a cautionary tale for her, like the Pied Piper represented the lawyer to her, and it was so she just like subconsciously she had some kind of bad feeling as soon as she heard about this lawyer coming in, which gives the film like this children book fairy tale kind of feel to it, like the bad wolf coming in to the town to wreak havoc, even though it's obviously that's not, he's doing that in a way, but it's empathetic because his grief is similar to theirs and all the things I was saying. But on the Criterion channel, they mentioned something interesting, because I thought, yeah, he's the Pied Piper, but the you can also say that the father is the Pied Piper, because it's so interesting how he's using the sound in the image. So there are scenes where she's reading the children's book to Bruce Greenwood's kids when she's babysitting them. And then later you just hear her reading it over different parts of the film. So when she's testifying about what happened, you hear it again, and she talks about the Pied Piper having frozen lips like a moon or something, and it's a close up to the father's lips. And there's so that happens every now and then. So again, that's really up to you, who to her the Pied Piper was, but I really saw that book, because at first I thought, why did he include this thing with the book? I mean, I thought it was almost too, it was just too blunt, like he had to, spell everything out. But no, I thought really it shows that, in a way, it gives another layer to the feelings of the film. And again, the film has this great score. It's like, it just has this poetic, quiet, melancholic feel, and who at the end of the day, the wisest one was the young teenager, right? So the moral center was the teenager. So it's almost like, sometimes these stories, these cautionary tales that we read when we're young are important and of value, and we should remember them, even though as adults we may forget them because life is complicated, right? And so sometimes teenagers and children are wiser because they're closer to those maybe cautionary tales and experiences and feelings. And so I thought, again, you could take whatever you want from that, but I thought it just really enriched the palette. It was really, really strong. But there's this other element, when I said earlier about, Bruce Greenwood, again, he's one of the more moral people connected to morals. And I'm not saying these people are bad. They're regular nice people. It's just you can see how Ian Holm was using their anger to his advantage and how they'd go with it. I'm not blaming them, even if they were not making the best choices to pursue this lawsuit and get more money and stuff like that. But he was also having an affair with one of the women in town who's married with a son. And so again, it's funny because later on he says to Sarah Polley's, the man who plays Sarah Polley's dad, he says, "Oh, we're a community, we help each other out." But at the same time, in the community, he's having an affair with someone who's married, right? So again, it just shows the complexity and that it's complicated. But just visually, I really encourage you all to go look at the featurette on the Criterion channel, because I'm only mentioning some of the things about the use of sound and editing that's really, really innovative and interesting in this film. And there's plenty of more, but I just loved it. I mean, it's a powerful film. At the end, I noticed people were crying, and when I watched it at the movie theater last night, and so I just think it's stunning. I just think it's a total masterpiece, and it's incredibly moving and touching, and it really makes you think about how to live life after something like this. I mean, I feel it is optimistic in the end. I mean, it has this shot, again, it's like another flashback where after she reads the story to the kids and she puts them to bed, she goes to the window and this light hits the window, and it's the light from Bruce Greenwood's car, and he's coming home. And so it's sort of like she goes from the darkness to the light, and she, the Sweet Hereafter, she says, now the town is strange and new. So now everything is different in this town because of this accident. Everything has changed. But is that I mean, obviously that's bad, but is that necessarily so bleak? Is new and strange? Does that mean that everything is now going to be dead? Does that mean that you can't go on? Does that mean that you can't grieve and move forward in some way? I mean, these are questions. These are not easy questions to answer. But the film has this feeling of, because of that shot with the light, you even see Sarah Polley like looks like an amusement park, and she's smiling. And so, these images, again, they're really strong. Again, the cinematography is just gorgeous. The landscapes in British Columbia, like of this quiet town where you feel like nothing really bad has happened like this till now. And the poor woman who was the bus driver, and she loved these kids so much, and she has like a shrine of all their pictures on her wall. It's devastating, but then you see her at the end of the film as we cut forward 2 years later as Ian Holm gets off the plane, and she has started again. Now she's living in Toronto. I think she's in Toronto, and now she's driving a different bus, like it looks like a tourist bus for adults, and she's in a much better mood, right? And she locks eyes with Ian Holm and she smiles, right? So, again, it's you find a way to move forward, right? So I think, again, it's incredible. I mean, I think it's a beautiful, beautiful film. So I'm so glad I got to see it again. Thank you for voting. I don't know if I would have watched it twice in 1 week if it hadn't won the poll, but I was so intrigued by it, and I really wanted to take the opportunity to see it on the big screen, because, how often is it shown in movie theaters nowadays? So thank you. Let me know if you've seen the film. Comment below. Let me know what you think of it. Thank you so much again for voting, and I will see you in the next one.